Everybody, I'm Jeager, and I'm bringing you guys the third part of What If I Was a Year in Marvel. In the previous part, of course, I introduced myself and how I became stronger thanks to the arc reactor that Tony created for me, so I can become stronger and eventually we defeat Ultron. Now, this actually some parts that I'll actually uncover for all of you guys of what happened to the rest of Ultron's body. Well, to put it simply, the vibranium that was left from Ultron's body, I decided to practically take on and eventually use to practically upgrade myself. Eventually, I was able to actually grant myself a new form with the vibranium, and I decided to name him Obsidian Fury. It was kind of like a dark version of my Gypsy Avenger form, but it was much more skillable, and even I had two blade swords. Of course, unlike my Gypsy Avenger form when I have just one, in that form I had two, and they were actually much more stronger. And eventually, when I actually took damage, I can actually repel it back, well, with an incredible shockwave, which makes me even more of a dangerous opponent if I'm to face anyone else. Of course, Tony would be pretty interesting in Vibranium, but realizing that I only can access it now means that he cannot actually get the material, so he has to probably give it to me since he believes that I deserve more. Of course, with me being adopted by Tony, and of course, Lyra being adopted by Wanda, we actually have a pretty good relationship with one another. With me and Lyra practically being our official Avengers, we practically want to practically make sure that everything goes well. Of course, I'll go in on night patrols for a long time, and even care about Tony as well. Of course, we go through many things and many others as well. But of course, most of us are trying to practically do our best of our abilities to become heroes. Of course, the events that lead to Steve practically meeting Bucky would still happen the same as the original, except that Lyra were actually able to help out Steve so he can be saved. Of course, most of the Hydras would try to attack her, but she was easily able to repel them back and eventually win against them. Well, of course, I'll be back home with Tony and Pepper being my mother and father. I'll practically make sure that everything is okay. Of course, I'll see the message from Lyra that they're in trouble, and eventually I will use one of my mini Jaeger forms, which I call Scrappy. It was much more miniature version of my Jaeger form, still big, but not as big as you guys think. It was at least the size of Hulk himself, and it was also much more agile than most of my other forms, making me able to roll like a ball, and I'm easily able to practically go to other places in incredible speed. Of course, after I get there, I realize the damage and realize that this was actually done with vibranium or adamantium as well. So this means that someone is actually pretty strong, if not even he has a vibranium with himself. Steve would explain to me about Bucky, and eventually I would actually be surprised. And eventually, I would realize that the mark, it was Hydra. Were they experimenting on Bucky? Just like Steve actually got his powers, could that Hydra maybe has done the same to Bucky, but much more brutally? I would think to myself, really. Eventually, I had to go through an information system. I'll try to probably get as much information from Bucky to even dig me into a dark web, but eventually I'll be stopped by something. Being Hydra, or the Professor, who worked with the Red Skull. Of course, the Professor told me to not intervene in their grand plan. Would Hydra rule the world? I'll tell him that that will not happen. And eventually, using the power that I gained from the Mind Stone, I'm able to cancel him out, making sure that he does not corrupt my system within my body. Even though I'm indeed human, I do have parts of machinery, so I didn't want any um, of my body to be corrupted by a doctor. So I made sure that I am practically put as many firewalls as I could. With of course me putting a maximum of at least 7 to 8 firewalls, making sure that I'm pretty protected. Of course, I'll eventually explain everything to everyone. But of course, Tony will still want to go with a plan. I'll probably make sure that superhumans are under the law. Of course, I'll be kind of against that, but of course, Tony will try to convince me that was actually good. But eventually, after some convincing with me, Tony realized that maybe Steve is right. But of course, Tony does not know about the past. But eventually, after learning about that Bucky actually killed both his parents, Tony became enraged. But wanting to listen to reason this time, he has to not let his rage get into his manner. So he has to practically join Steve's side. Of course, most events between the bout of the Avengers will still go the same, except that Vision or Hawkeye will not actually fight. Because of course, me and Lyra will actually be against the law, and eventually we will have to face off against Black Panther and many others. Of course, Peter will actually be invited by me. With me actually thinking that he'll be pretty good for a future Avenger as well, because I've seen what he can do and he's still pretty young. So having him as an Avenger really early would be pretty good. Of course, Nick Fury will be kind of skeptical of my decision, but seeing how I've done over the couple of months, he believes that maybe my judgment is not that big, not that far off. So of course, I practically want to talk with Peter for after some time. Of course, Tony will still give him the new improved suit of Spider-Man. Eventually, I will also talk with Peter, and eventually both of us will get to know each other as well. And of course, they're also getting to know him as well. Of course, both of us will bring up as that he actually has this unique ability with his senses, making it that he's much more physically stronger than most others. Of course, I was pretty surprised and wonder if he's a mutant, but he's actually a full-fledged human. I actually wonder if he has a unique ability that is only comparable to maybe his parents. Of course, we don't know his parents, but if we're pretty sure that maybe Peter does have some ability, even if he's not a mutant like me or Lyra. So we decided to practically convince him to join our side. Of course, Black Panther will still want Bucky dead, but with me, of course, and Lyra able to help the rest of the Avengers out, we were able to practically help out some things. Of course, Thor's story will still go the same as the original, with of course Ragnarok still the Ragnarok movie still going the same as the original, with of course Thor meeting the Hulk, but also actually talking about me as well. Of course, Thor will actually explain to Hulk that he's been missing for a long time, and I've now become an Avenger with Lyra as well. Of course, Hulk will remember both me and Lyra, and of course, we actually be surprised that the little guy, or he guesses me, I've joined and became an Avenger, a full-fledged one. Of course, it's told the telling that I became incredibly stronger, and even achieved a new stage before he left. Of course, Hulk actually wondering what that stage is, and asked him what the name is. Well, of course, Thor explained that was Obsidian Fury. It wasn't partly made from the body parts of Ultron, but I also make sure to actually not get corrupted virus or anything like that. With Hulk actually being pretty impressed. Of course, most of the stories will still go the same as the original, but of course, the battle between both Tony, Bucky, and of course, no, will not happen. It will not happen in the story like in the movie. It will not happen because in this timeline, of course, I'm Tony's adopted son, so I was able to partly bring him to reason and tell him that the past is the past. And Bucky did not mean to do that. He was forced to by Hydra. I eventually even showed the evidence and even how the doctor is in his computer, using it as a hardware. Of course, after Bucky and Steve would have found out, they decided to practically kill him by destroying the entire computer. Of course, I was able to also clear most of the Hydra members and eventually point out which are Hydra and which people are not. Of course, with most of us able to handle down the Hydra soldiers, we most likely mean that if you're not actually able to actually die or anything like that. Mean that he will not retire. But of course, Fury sees that the problems became really big, so maybe it's time for him to step down, or maybe at least giving a power to someone else. Of course, he's not sure yet, but he believes that in due time, everything will change. Of course, most events that happen in the beginning of the movie of Infinity War will still happen since the original, with of course Hulk being thrown down to Earth, but of course both me and Tony will actually be there to actually see him. Of course, in the battle between the aliens, I was able to help out my father so we can defeat him, while Lyra were able to help out her mother so they can beat down some aliens. Of course, both me and Peter were easily able to handle most of the other aliens and eventually bring a really good battle to everyone else. Of course, the battle between Thanos and the rest of the Avengers and some others will still happen the same as the original. And of course, the meeting between Star-Lord and Iron Man will still happen as well, with me, of course, able to practically show that we're not with Thanos. Of course, we're trying, of course, to stop Thanos, but even with our combined work, we'll still be overwhelmed. Eventually, it was not until I practically decided to use my Obsidian Fury form to practically fight against Thanos. This actually brings Thanos a pretty good challenge. Even with my current abilities, I'm actually able to evolve my stages. Because of my father able to practically use Nowtech, I actually have used some of it on my forms, and now I can utilize them very well. Meaning that when I split, I actually do not split my energy as well or anything like that. Meaning that I'll still have the full strength and my capabilities in each and every separate form. Of course, I'll be able to use both my Gypsy Avenger and of course Obsidian Fury stages so I can fight Thanos. But of course, Thanos was easily able to manhandle me, with slamming me to the ground, even making me cough up blood. Eventually, Thanos will turn Tony and Doctor Strange to give me to give him a time stone, or if not, I will die. Of course, Luna tells Thanos to stop, but before she can say anything, Thanos just throws her to a wall. I'll cough up blood and call out for her name. Of course, I'm joking about Thanos, and Thanos tells me that he doesn't want to have blood on his hands, does he? As he asks Tony. Tony just looks down and ponders what he should do. But before anything can be said, Strange tells him to let me go, and he'll give him the time stone. Both me and Tony would look at him, and we even ask him, "What is he doing? You should not do that." Of course, Strange tells us that that is the only way. Eventually, after Thanos achieves the time stone. He's able to complete the gauntlet. Of course, even with Thor able to use his axe, Thanos still snaps his fingers and eventually erases half the universe, with Lyra being erased. Of course, we could try and catch her, but eventually she will be turned to dust. In my rage and fury, I would just look at Strange as he turns to dust, with him apologizing to me. I was in frustration as my anger was full of it. I could not bring myself. I lost the one who I loved. I lost a friend as well. I lost almost my entire family. Why? Why do I always lose the ones who I care the most when I needed them? Why? I asked those questions and even shouted as well, with Tony just holding on to me. Tell me that they were able to fix it. They would try. I would just look down as I tear up, pushing the ground as I would try to do my best to hold out my anger, my sadness, and regret. Eventually, both me and Tony will be in the spaceship. And of course, with my help, and eventually Captain Marvel's, we're able to go back home. But nobody will be happy. Nobody will be. I'll just be sadly depressed because I lost the one I loved. With Tony being the only one who tried to support me to his end. Even he did not have the energy or to try to keep up. But eventually I found out that I actually had a little sister. I was really happy to at least have at least for so long to have a hope in my life. At least a shining bright star to probably see in the end. I was really happy that I literally have a little sister, and of course Pepper told me to take a break. I deserve it after so long. I nodded as I said to just go to my room. With Tony just looking down, thinking to himself that he feels a father. But just Pepper just hold him and tell him that he did nothing wrong and he tried his best, just like I did as well. I was just being in my room, silent but also trying to fix it. Could we bring back everyone? Of course, even when you of course were able to of course this will be the end for the sport guys. Hope you guys enjoy this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Sayonara, everyone.